Hey, deserving listeners, a lot of you on YouTube have been asking me to go back and watch Darcey from the beginning. I thought that I would only have to go back a little bit, but she's been on this show since the very first season, and there's been 3.5 seasons of this offshoot of 90 Day Fiancé. And at first, when I saw that, I was like, oh no, that's like 45 episodes or something. I don't have the time for that. But you know what? I thought the people on YouTube want it, and they deserve it, so I'm going to give it. So here we go. This is the Psychology in Seattle podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor who specializes in both providing couples therapy and also teaching couples therapists at my university and supervising them as well. I find couples therapy to be one of the most rewarding kinds of therapy because it's so great to help people to have a deeper love, a more secure attachment with each other, help them to avoid the pitfalls that causes hurt and pain and breakups. And it's great to see in session people expressing love to each other. It's just wonderful to see. Whenever that happens, I get a little teary-eyed as a therapist. It really makes my day and makes it all worth it. In this series, I'm going to follow Darcey from the very beginning just for you guys. So I'm going back to season 1, 90 Day Fiancé, before the 90 days. I'm going to find out finally, once and for all, as you all have been asking me to do, what's up with Darcey and Jesse and all those other people. So let's find out what comes out of my face when we watch this. And as always, my cat would like to join in on the conversation. She's extremely vocal, and she always likes to tell me what's going on right now. She wants to sit in my lap.
I'm Darcey. I'm 42 years old. I'm currently living in Middletown, Connecticut.
I'm so excited to see you. You look beautiful.
Okay, so that's great to see. These two people have been long-distance relationship. They finally get to see each other, and they seem to be really into each other right now. It's good to see love, right? I always have to wonder about the sincerity of both the people, because on reality TV, there's another demand characteristic here of that, my cat wants to chime in, that people want to be famous, right? And so maybe are they playing it up a bit, or are they not expressing the full picture because they want to create a good story that people will put on TV? That's always the skeptic in me. But as I watch more of these reality shows, I realize that a lot of these people do stay together. And so, plus I just kind of want to believe on some level, but I don't want to be naive to the possibilities of other things happening. But I'm going to believe them until proven otherwise.
Baby, what are we going to do about Facebook? Are you ready to change your relationship status?
So why do you bring this up?
I just want to.
So from what I understand, she just got off the plane, and this might even be the first night or the second night or something, and she is wanting him to change his Facebook status. There's nothing wrong with that. People have different gauges of this sort of thing. It can be a source of conflict for some people, right? You start dating someone, and you're like, hey, I feel good about this. I don't know if it's going to last forever, but I want to be exclusive really quickly. And so, hey, are you going to advertise to everyone on Facebook that you're in a relationship with me? And then other people, they have a different idea of how they want to do that. They might want to wait for a while. And both people are right. There's nothing wrong with either position. The issue is, how do two people communicate about that while taking care of each other? Because Darcey right now is setting herself up for some hurt, because it sounds like he's about to say, I'm not ready for that. Again, nothing wrong with that. There's also nothing wrong with having a little bit of conflict about that. So how is each person going to navigate that difference, and how are they going to handle their own emotions around that? Let's see how they do.
I know, is this the time we need to?
Well, to be honest, Darcey, I think that all my friends now basically already know. Yeah.
No pressure. It's just curious to know your thoughts on it.
Yeah. All right.
So that wasn't a disaster, but I wouldn't say that was great. I would imagine that right now both of them are having some unexpressed feelings right now. She's probably a little hurt by that. I'm just going to take a guess. He's probably a little worried about having let her down and worried that she might be upset. If I were there, I would maybe say, hey, Darcey, How do you feel about that? Remember our talks earlier about expressing your emotions, giving him a chance to take care of you. She can say, hey, I was kind of hoping you would change your Facebook profile, and the fact that you didn't, it kind of hurts my feelings. I'm not going to make a demand on you, but I'm just feeling a little insecure about whether or not you are really going to give this relationship a try. The other thing here is, from what I'm seeing, Darcey is all chips on the table. She's all in. She's like, yes, 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 100% yes. He is like, I really like her and I want to give this a try, but I'm not willing to make a commitment yet because we barely know each other. So there's also that difference there as well. Now, the show is, the premise of it is you got to get married within a certain amount of time, literally 90 days. And so it puts this pressure on everyone. And you got to wonder if Darcey and, I forget his name, were able to date outside of the show, if they would have a better chance given the flexibility of real life. But anyway, so let's see how Darcey manages her hurt, but also let's see how he manages his worry that she is hurt.
I've never been able to change my status, so to me this is, if I'm doing that, it needs to be the real deal and not a joke. So it's just like I want us to make sure we're comfortable with doing it.
Oh, baby.
But it is sometimes hard to read him.
So again, they didn't handle that horribly, but they're not really being forthcoming about how they're feeling. This isn't a good sign of things to come. If Darcey can't express her slight disappointment or slight hurt about him not changing his Facebook status, is she going to be able to express the big hurts in a functional way? I guess we'll find out.
He's got a little mystery to him still. Maybe he's holding back on something?
So I'm not going to jump to any conclusions, but I do like to develop running hypotheses right from the beginning so that I can test it based on evidence. And there's a little bit of evidence to point towards a burgeoning hypothesis that Darcey suffers from what we call preoccupied attachment, and maybe this guy, which I can't remember his name, is suffering from what they call avoidant attachment, or it's hard to say for him, but at least for her, it's preoccupied attachment. I've talked about it before, but to reiterate very briefly, when we are raised in a way that's inconsistent about the love and attention we get, either because of abuse or substance abuse or abandonment or divorce or chaos or, lots of other things that can lead to a child experiencing a very inconsistent faucet of love, shall we say. When you're raised in an environment like that, one of the coping strategies that a child will develop at the age of 18 months, 24 months, and around there is to be very vigilant about whether or not someone is trustworthy or not, and also kind of assume that people are going to screw you over, either because people can't be trusted or you're not worthy of love. And when you have that schema and that mindset and that attachment style and those internalizations, you end up being very, they call it, they'll get labeled as needy a lot of the times because you make a lot of demands. And when you're a little hurt, the hurts become really big and the communication ends up looking quote unquote dramatic from people. And also you can develop this all or nothing idealization or hating people. So you can be like all good or all bad. And Darcey has some signs of this. For example, without really knowing this guy, she is 100% into him. She's 100% convinced this is going to work. That doesn't make rational sense. She's 43. She knows better than to put all her eggs in that basket without giving it more time. But when you have relational traumas, and when you have relational traumas like that, you tend to have difficult relationships that are, as an adult. So Darcey may have had a lifetime of difficult relationships going back to when she was a child. When that happens for you, you're so desperate for some security that you end up having this defense called idealization. Freud recognized this, the Freudians and the psychoanalysts recognized this 100 and some odd years ago. And the idea goes is that in order to have some semblance of hope and some semblance of security, we will idealize another person and be like, this relationship is perfect. this guy is perfect, everything's going to work out, because the fears are so great of it going the way it has in the past. And as a way of protecting us from that worry, we just say, well, this is perfect, everything's perfect. But when there's any kind of hint that this is not perfect, then that idealization is challenged and everything gets washed away. And all of a sudden you're faced with the fact like, oh my God, it's going to be like it has in the past, which is its own distortion. What it kind of looks like to me is they're dating and they're getting to know each other. And if things go well, then things will go well. But it's uncertain right now. And she's vacillating between these two positions of this is perfect to, uh-oh, he's a bit of a mystery. What's he hiding? And that's where that hypervigilance starts to kick in, because that's what's happened to her in the past. Now, maybe he is hiding something. We don't know. But there's no overt indication of that yet. If all things are kind of pointing in the direction that he's really into her and willing to give this a try, but he's not overly into it, because it wouldn't make any sense to be overly into it because they just met in person for the very first time. So that's my running hypothesis about her attachment style. And that attachment style tends to recreate the past, meaning that your hypervigilance and your misinterpretation and the all good and all bad reactivity tend to push people away and create more abandonment and more hurt. For him, it's less certain, but he might be balanced and healthy, but there's also a possibility that he's what we call avoidant attachment, which is when you grow up with inconsistent love and attunement, particularly if it's consistently not enough, then the child often will develop what we call avoidant attachment, which is in the direction of narcissism, where you end up depending on yourself a lot. You end up being very independent as a young child, and you say, I don't really need other people. And one of the ways that you can come across to other people as an adult when you do have a avoidant attachment style is you can seem mysterious, or you can seem like an enigma, hard to figure out. That's something that is often ascribed to people with avoidant attachment. Why is that? Well, because they learned at an early age that it doesn't make any sense, doesn't do any good to signal other people to your emotions, because no one's going to be there for you. So why would you signal your emotions only to be let down? So the solution is don't signal, because then you won't be rejected. You don't give people a chance to reject you if you don't signal what's happening in your heart. And so you end up reflecting everything inward and depending on yourself and not really indicating how you really feel to other people. I don't see a lot of red flags and this is actually common. When you have a preoccupied person, they end up their heart's on their sleeves, so they're detectable pretty quickly. Avoidant people it takes a longer time to detect. And they often seem more healthy when in reality they're just as relationally traumatized as the preoccupied people, but they just have a more seemingly functional way on the outside of coping with it. Incidentally, and again, this is just a hypothesis, maybe I'll be proven different, wrong later, but avoidant people and preoccupied people tend to fit well together because the preoccupied person will pursue and the avoidant person will distance. And what that does is that keeps a certain functional distance between the two. The avoidant person almost likes the preoccupied person because they're like, okay, finally someone has broken through my walls and gotten through to me. And for the preoccupied person, sometimes they like the avoidant person because they're there for them, but it doesn't create trauma. When two preoccupied people who pursue each other, sometimes it can flame out really quickly. It's a lot of generalizations. There's no way to generalize about that kind of thing. But one thing we can say is that there's a certain kind of avoidant person and a certain kind of preoccupied person that fits well together. And we'll see if that plays out in this relationship. And as always, I can't diagnose from afar. I have no idea. I would have to see these people in my office. The other thing is the producers could be editing this. The other thing, they could be acting this whole thing out because they know they're on camera. I mean, just imagine being on a date with like 3 cameras sitting and like a sound person and lighting. And, it's hard to act natural. So I'm always wondering if this is really them. And so as I talk about these people, just keep that all in mind, is that I have no idea if any of this is accurate because of all those factors. I'm just trying to – I'll tell you the reason why I do this thing if you haven't watched my other videos where I explain this. I try to make the world a better place. That is my mission professionally and personally. And one of the things that I do to try to make the world a better place is by providing couples therapy for people. Another way that I've discovered through YouTube is if I talk about these reality TV stars and analyze their relationships and, make some speculations, that you, the listeners, can reflect on your own attachment style and your own reactions to attachment disruptions and worries and your own relationship patterns so that you can have secure attachments, so that your relationships can be better. Now, obviously, you're not my clients. I'm probably never even going to meet any of you. But through this educational process, you can learn and reflect and get your own therapy, your own couples therapy, to try to actually get the relationships that you deserve. There are so many people out there like Darcey who have had a lifetime of difficulty and they don't know why. But I, as a therapist, usually can discover why. Now, it's not because I'm some genius. All couples therapists and most relational therapists have the training and the experience and the wisdom to be able to sift through that with people. So there's an answer to this and there's a way forward. It's not easy. There's a lot of things you got to do, but there is hope. And so many people are out there going, I give up. There's no hope for me. And it breaks my heart because there is hope. There is a way. I've seen so many people who have been through terrible traumas growing up have recovered, have healed, and established secure relationships because everyone deserves that. And so I hope that for you. So the only reason why I speculate about these people and people that I might not be accurate about is because I want you to benefit from that conceptualization and from that speculation. So just take that all in mind, please. And I really do hope that this is helpful for you because that is my mission in life. When I am on my deathbed, if someone could just say to me, Kirk, you did a good job trying to make the world a better place, then I can pass away with a big smile on my face. So anyway, that got deep, but let's watch the rest of this interaction. How about that?
No, I can't help but feel offended right now. What do you think he meant when he said, I'm out of your league?
Well, you had to ask him, right?
I didn't, though. So, when your stepdad asked, I don't know what he meant by that.
Okay, so this is an interesting situation. For Darcey and Jesse, they went to his mom and stepdad's place, and it was an interesting conversation. And the stepdad said something along the lines of that she was out of his league, meaning that he was better than her. And they're driving home, and Darcey is like, what do you think your stepdad meant when he said that I was out of your league? What's going on there? And Jesse says, well, you're going to have to ask him. Okay, I guess if you're all coworkers, that'd be fine. But Darcey's probably not going to go to the stepdad and go, what'd you mean by that? I mean, but a more warm response, a response that is attuned to Darcey's feelings would be to say, yeah, when he said that, that was horrible. For him to say such a thing to the person that I love, I didn't like that he said that. So I'm sorry that he said that. I don't want, he's kind of an extroverted person. He says what's on his mind. So who knows what's going on there, but, I'm sorry on his behalf that he said that sort of thing. Something along those lines, maybe, if you're trying to care. Now, again, running on the hypothesis that he has avoidant attachment style, when you are raised in a way that denies your feelings, you not only turn yourself off to other people. You don't signal when you're having an emotion to other people. You tend to look blank. It also helps if you shut down your own emotions. Not shut down. You cut yourself off from accessing the reality of your emotions. Your emotions are happening, your needs are happening. But if you sort of cut yourself off from that, then it makes it so that you don't notice your needs and thus won't realize when your needs aren't being met. If your needs aren't being met, a strategy to deal with that is to not recognize your needs. And then there's a part of your psyche that wanders around going I'm content, I'm happy. Avoidant attached people often walk around when you ask them if they're happy, they'll say, oh yeah, I'm totally good. I'm fine. Everything's fine. Things could never be better. But underneath the surface is someone who's very lonely and has a lot of needs just like anybody else does. And so again, I don't know that about him. It's harder to detect avoidant attached people from the beginning, but we're seeing some more signs. So another thing that we cut ourselves off from avoidant attached people is noticing other people's reactions. Because one, to notice other people's reactions to have empathy, you have to feel other people's emotions. And one of the ways we feel other people's emotions is when we feel our own emotions provoked by other people's emotional states. That's one way of knowing empathy and being attuned to someone else's feelings. They're sad and your mirror neurons kick in and you're like, oh, I'm sad too. Oh, they must be sad because I'm feeling the sadness. And that's one part of empathy. And so for avoiding attached people, sometimes they don't even notice that other people are going through a difficult time. The other thing is when you're raised in an emotionally neglecting way, you're just modeled a world in which no one really cares about other people's feelings. And so you just learn like, well, that's just how we are. I'm over here, you're over there, and you take care of yourself, and I'll take care of myself. And if you have a problem, take care of it. And if I have a problem, I won't ask you for help. I'll take care of it. The thing I always say is avoidant attached people, when they move, they won't ask their friends to help them move because it doesn't even occur to them to ask for help. They'll just do it all by themselves. There's other indications, and that's not the only sign of avoidant attachment, but that's the one I always say. And so Jesse, in this moment, now us watching are going, holy crap, Darcey is hurt by what your stepdad said. How about you step up and take care of the person that you say you love and sympathize with her, empathize with her, say, oh my God, yeah, when he said that, I was upset and I could see how you're really hurt by that. I'm with you. We're on a team together. He's blank. He's just like, huh? Well, I don't know. Just going to have to ask him. Now, an interpretation of that people will wage is he's a douchebag, he doesn't care, he's just using her to get a visa or whatever the judgment is of the day. It's possible, but it's more likely because people generally are good people who care about other human beings and want to care for other human beings. If we're going to see his lack of response, and that's our observation, then in all likelihood, his lack of response is due to something else other than nefarious, neglect, purposeful neglect. It's possible that he just doesn't notice because no one has ever really noticed his feelings. We saw a little bit of his interaction with his mom earlier. I didn't show those clips, but we saw a little bit of the interactions there. The mom had some red flags of someone who likes to sweep things under the rug. And she's matched up with a stepdad who, I'm going to say it, is at least somewhat hostile. I mean, he's framed as extroverted and, says what's on his mind. But what kind of an asshole says something like that to his stepson's girlfriend when you just met them? I mean, he had a number of insults that he waged. He also said like Americans were fake or something. Maybe the mom said that too. Is that how, a lot of our watchers on YouTube are not from the United States. Is that how you see us, that we're all fake? Because I'm guessing the reason why you think we're all fake is because you watch a lot of reality TV and you think that that's all Americans. I'm here to tell you that there's a wide variety of Americans, including me, which I'd like to think would not be perceived as fake. I could be perceived as a lot of things, negative or positive. Fake, I would hope, would not be one of them. So anyway, my American heart is being punched at, I suppose. But anyway, those parents, there's some red flags there of like not paying attention to Jesse's needs, not really going, hey, what does Jesse need right now? What does my son need right now? He likes this woman. What do I need to do to support him? There didn't seem to be a lot of mindfulness of that. Now, the producers could have edited all those points out, but that, again, builds this hypothesis of parents that did not really pay attention to his needs, and he had to cut himself off not only from his own emotions, but from all emotions and everyone else. And so let's see if we see more data along those lines.
I hope it didn't rub you the wrong way, to be honest, because he didn't mention it in a negative way. You have to understand, like, Dave is a very extrovert and direct person.
I get it. See,
can I finish, baby? So I think that what Dave said was, just to lay out the difference of our lives.
So he's trying to explain his parents and their statements, which is, I guess, fine. He's not being too dysfunctional here, but he's completely missing the emotional messaging that Darcey is putting forth. That she's hurt. She's saying, they did bad things. Now, Darcey could do better by saying, what they said hurt my feelings. I'm just going to come out and say it. And what I would like from you is just some acknowledgement that I'm not crazy, that hurt my feelings. I'm not going to never talk to your parents again. I'm sure they're lovely people, and there were some great moments that we had, but I just have to say there are a couple moments that just kind of hurt my feelings, and I guess I'm just looking for some empathy there. That's another strategy, particularly for preoccupied people, if you're listening, that you can build healthy relationships is, especially if you're involved with an avoidant person, is to describe to them how you would like them to react. Hoping that they can read your mind and just magically react the way you want them to isn't always the best strategy. So sometimes it's good to say, hey, the fact that I have some negative things to say about your parents isn't some indication that I'm going to fly off the handle and hate them. I thought they were lovely people. I'm looking forward to getting to know them better. But I said a couple of things that sort of hurt my feelings, and all I'm looking for you, I don't need you to defend them. If you feel like you need to explain some things, that's fine. I'll listen. But really, what I need from you is just some indication that you care about my feelings because they were hurt. And so you could really just put an end to this whole conversation if you want it to end, if you just give me some empathy around that. To the avoidant person, that really helps them because they're like, oh, okay. They might not necessarily know that because they're not used to paying attention to that sort of thing. So we'll see how they do with the rest of this conversation. I'm guessing it's not going to go well, but I'll keep my hopes up.
Basically said I'm less than you. Like, it was like a diss. So what Dave said really struck a chord in me. I wonder if there's any truth to that.
Okay, so that's another worrisome thing, is that there's a potential part of Darcey that believes that she is less than, that she is worthless, and that when the stepdad said she was less than him, Jesse, there's a part of her that believes that. Now, that's of course not true, that Darcey has just as much worth as Jesse does. And from the sound of it, seems like Jesse, why would he date someone that he thinks is lesser than him? So at least there's no indication that he's doing that. So Darcey, I'm guessing, was raised in a way that made her feel not worth it. There's so many people that are raised this way, and it's heartbreaking when I treat people like this. That notion, that schema of worthlessness and that deep flawed sense is so pervasive. There's no arguing with it. It's just a fact to these people. I've had Bob Gettle on the podcast, and if you've heard him talk about that, you know what I'm talking about. The sort of statements that people will agree with in schema therapy will be something like, if people really got to know me, they wouldn't really like me. If you agree with that statement, even kind of, then you might actually have that schema. I don't know if Darcey has that schema, but that is something, there is some red flag there of, that struck, she says, the stepdad said I'm less than, and that struck a chord with me, and I worry about that. And it's okay to have those feelings because of the way she was treated. She can't control that. There's nothing she can do about that schema in the short term. What I hope is that she can combat that with her conscious mind and by getting support from other people to say that she is worth it, that the intrusive thought that she's worthless is combated with conscious thought and getting support from other people that she is worth it. Because if she lets that invasive thought, intrusive thought, run rampant in her soul and her psyche, that she's worthless, one, that's going to put her in a bad mood, which isn't good, fair to her. And Jesse is going to be like, man, she's in a bad mood a lot of times. The other thing is a lot of defenses are going to kick in, where you're going to try to overcome that feeling or trick other people around you into not realizing that you're worthless. And that can be a put off to other people as well. So we'll see how that plays out. I'm just hypothesizing right now. So I don't even know if this is, accurate, but we'll see.
Sometimes in the back of my head, like, is this what he really wants? It's like I just want to make sure for sure.
So totally normal when you're first dating to wonder, is this what he really wants? But it's another thing to be preoccupied and have that just be nagging all the time. That's the preoccupied curse, is that when you're raised in a way where you were inconsistently given love and attention, your brain is hyper attuned to, do people love me? And what that does is when that question mark is just constantly rolling in your head, you need a constant affirmative answer to that to soothe you. And that's just not possible in most relationships, or in any relationship probably. It's not possible for the Jessies of the world to constantly answer that question, is the relationship secure? Now, there's nothing wrong with, in fact, there's a ton of functionality to Darcey saying, asking for occasional bidding for occasional reassurance from him. Nothing wrong with that. And I think she's kind of doing that right now. But when you suffer from a significant amount of preoccupation, it's just constant. And the answer to that is therapy, is interpersonal relational therapy, to heal from that original trauma, relational trauma, so that you no longer have those notions that you're unlovable. You no longer have those notions, those working models of other, that no one will ever love me. And once you no longer, or it's mitigated, then the question marks are reduced, and you can get it down to a sustainable level that other people can handle. Anyway, let's continue watching.
If we don't get married, you marry someone else, I can't really get mad at that. No, I know it's gonna be us, but I'm saying, like...
No, you're not, because you're saying somebody else.
No, what I'm saying is, if it doesn't happen for some weird reason, which I know it will, but I know we'll always be in each other's life.
So this is interesting. I can't really tell exactly what's happening, obviously, because I don't have the opportunity to ask Darcey what's happening. But if I was to make a guess, I would say that in this moment, she was hurt by stepdad. She asked for Jesse to take care of her. He didn't take care of her. He didn't do anything terrible, but he didn't notice her pain and didn't attend to it at all. She's feeling insecure because of that rift, and is having kind of a plummeting feeling. Preoccupied people will have that. They'll, like, the rug will get pulled out from underneath them, and they'll feel very disjointed. I'm guessing if we were to hook Darcey up to some machine that could measure her cortisol and her heart rate and her blood pressure, that it would be skyrocketing, even though we see that she doesn't seem to be freaking out. But internally, that can happen. And so in her mind, she's trying to find a way out. She's trying to find a way to soothe. And she's concluded she can't really turn to Jesse because he's very unattuned, for lack of a better term. And so her strategy is, I think, twofold by saying what she just said. One is she's trying to reassure herself outward. She's externalizing these thoughts of, like, well, I guess if this relationship doesn't work out, I'll be okay. Instead of just thinking that, she's verbalizing it outward, which actually is hurting Jesse. Jesse is like, well, wait a second. What do you mean it's not going to work? I thought we were going to make this work. So Jesse is hurt now, and she doesn't want that. But again, because of the preoccupied defenses, it ends up pushing people away. It was worse. We're already seeing that. The other thing I think she's actually doing is it's a passive aggression to Jesse. She's actually wanting Jesse to be hurt because she feels hurt. This is another thing that people will do, regardless of their insecure attachment style. When they're hurt, they want other people to share in that hurt. And so they will hurt others either passively or inadvertently as a way of spreading the hurt around, so to speak. Especially because she feels like he is mistreating her by not paying attention to her feelings, and that hurts her, and then we get angry, and then we figure out ways to express that anger. And one of the ways you can do that is to say, well, if this relationship doesn't work, kind of appearing like you're above it all, and it's working. Now he's hurt. So this is escalating very quickly, and I'm really concerned. If we're just going to watch this, we're like, it's just a little tiff. But this is in the beginning of the relationship. They've just ran into one of their first major moments, and things are already spinning way out of control. And neither one of them seems to have a grip on what's really happening. And I guess I'm really worried about the two of them.
But it will.
I know it will. Okay.
So what is the weird reason that it will not happen?
I don't know. I don't want to think like that, but if there is something.
So I've been commenting a lot on Darcey because, again, it's easier to analyze preoccupied people with their heart on their sleeve. But let's, focus on Jesse here for a second. It's pretty clear that Jesse is hurt, that she said, well, if things don't work out, everything will be okay. He's hurt by that. That hurt his feelings. It makes sense that it hurts his feelings. Us watching him, and maybe even for Darcey as well, it's hard to detect that hurt because, again, he doesn't show his emotions. And the temptation is to look at someone like Jesse and see someone who is strong, independent. Avoidant attached people get labeled that, and sometimes they'll label it themselves. But the fact is that they're just as vigilant and just as scared and just as needy as the preoccupied person, but they've cut themselves off from showing it and maybe even acknowledging it in their own mind. It seems to me very clear, because I've worked with so many people like him, that he's hurt right now, and he has a lot of nonverbals like that, and he's probably getting angry on the inside, and he's probably saying to himself, I'm not going to say anything, because if I say anything, it's going to get ugly. I'm just going to sit here, and I'm going to try. And this is the avoidant way. Through my silence and my scowl, I'm going to hope that this message, however confusing it is, that with this message, she will know that what she did just hurt my feelings, and she will apologize and take care of me and not ever do that again. Now, that doesn't usually work, right? You have to be more explicit with that, because Darcey's going to interpret this behavior as more distancing and more hurtful to her. She's not necessarily going to interpret it as I just hurt his feelings because I said maybe we're not going to work out. And again, as a couples therapist, I just want to be there and help them understand these attachment disruptions and attachment injuries, and help them understand how to signal to each other in an effective way so that they can just get through this. Right now, damage is happening right before our eyes that could be averted if they just knew what to do in this situation, and it's just so frustrating to watch.
There's that fear of losing me that makes her feel uncomfortable.
You don't have anything to lose, Do you understand? We're basically.
Why do you say I have nothing to lose?
Yeah, so right there, there's still a lot of the similar things I've been talking about at play. If we're going on the hypothesis that Darcey has a schema of worthlessness and deep flawedness, she has a schema that basically says, he's perfect and I'm nothing. It's also kind of a preoccupied position to be in, where you have a working model of self that is terrible, and you have a working model of other people like they're perfect. And so she's exhibiting that because she's plummeting, because she feels alone, she feels scared, she feels hurt. And so she's regressing, and she's resorting to a lot of things. A lot of things are coming out because she's feeling a lot of things in all likelihood. And so she's saying, I have a lot to lose, because her narrative about herself is she's a loser, she's old, she's over the hill, she's on the downward spiral of blah blah blah. I mean, I'm making a lot of supposition. I'm making a lot of assumptions here. I have no idea if this is true, but this seems to be, she seems to be indicating that. While you, Jesse, are perfect, you have your whole life ahead of you, everything's fine. And Jesse's like, well, wait a second. You're implying that if you leave me, I'll be fine. because I, deep down, need you just as much as you need me. I'm just as scared and I have just as many feelings and emotions and needs as you do. You're treating me like I'm a robot, and this can be very alienating to the avoidant person. This can actually really push them over the edge. If you're an avoidant person out there, you've probably been called an enigma. You've probably been called hard to read. You've probably been called strong and independent. Whereas deep down, you're lonely and you're sad and you're desperate and you don't know how everyone seems to think you're so strong all the time. Well, it's because when you were young, you learned to turn off any signaling to other people, and you don't give them a chance to know your vulnerability and take care of you. And by the way, the solution is to be vulnerable. So for him, if he is avoidant, the solution for Jesse is, instead of getting angry, is to say something like, okay, honey, I just want you to slow down. Some of the things you're saying right now are hurting my feelings because I really like you and I want this to work out. And I have vulnerabilities too. And if this doesn't work out, it's going to be really hard for me. And I know it's going to be, if you and I don't work out, I know it's going to be hard for you, but it will be equally hard for me, if not more hard for me. I don't know. It begins with that vulnerability, avoidant people out there. That's the key. Because then Darcey could be like, oh, you're a full human being. You have feelings that I need to take care of. And the fact that you need me reassures me, because that means that you need me and you could be hurt by me. What a novel concept. Now, the other thing that can happen here is that the preoccupied person sometimes have this fantasy of being with someone that has no feelings, because somehow that's a fantasy that feels more secure to the preoccupied person. Because if my man has no feelings, then nothing bad can ever happen. But of course, we know that that doesn't make any sense. And so I don't know. I'm throwing a lot out there. Let's gather some more data.
We both have everything to lose.
So that was good. I would have liked a little bit more from him, but that's great. He said, we both have a lot to lose. And then Darcey, instead of saying, oh, okay, she's like, probably because she's still hurt about the stepdad thing. I hope Darcey can come around and see what he was trying to say. He could do a lot better by amping that up and saying, honey, I just want to tell you, if this doesn't work out, it's going to be really hard for me because I really like you. Whenever you are in a situation like this, you want to try to say things like that because it can really salvage these kinds of conflicts. All right, well, that does it for part 1, in which I analyze episodes 1, 2, 3, and 4 from season 1 with Darcey. So tune in next time when we pick up where we left off. And if you haven't already subscribed and hit the bell, do that below. And also become a patron on Patreon. That's how I know you like what we're doing here. Every time someone signs up on Patreon, I get a little email and it warms my heart. So please do that. And as always, please take care of yourself. Take care of other people. Why? Because you deserve it. You really, really do.